This is a yellowtail kingfish from the Kingfish Company. Just wait until you see all of the amazing cuts we can get off of this one gorgeous fish.
First thing we're gonna do is cut off all the fins. That's its pectoral fin. This is its pelvic fins. This other pectoral fin. Now we're gonna take the dorsal fin off, flip it over. Now we're gonna take the anal fin off. Up next, we're gonna scale the fish. Now, my favorite way to scale fish for this presentation is tsukibiki, Japanese method for scaling fish, where you cut the scales off instead of scraping them off. Because when you scrape them off, there's these little pockets that can hold moisture. But I want you guys to try this at home. And I know this is a lot less intimidating, and it'll work just fine. Make sure you get all the scales around the collar. The kama of these fish is absolutely phenomenal. We don't want moisture going on the meat of our fish, but right now, none of the meat is exposed. Using some water is just fine. Up next, we're gonna remove the guts out of our kingfish. We're gonna stick just the tip of our knife into the anal vent, slide up. Once you get to the pelvic bone, it's a little tougher, so you can angle your knife forward, give it a little bit more force. We're gonna cut underneath the gills on both sides. Take your scissors, snip right underneath the throat. Open this up nicely like that. We're gonna snip at the base of those gills, cut all the way through them. Give a nice, gentle tug, and you can pull away all of the organs with the gills. You've got everything out at once. At the top of where the guts were, there's blood. That's the kidney of the fish. We're going to gently puncture the kidney without cutting through to the meat and take all that kidney blood out. Now we're gonna hose out that kidney blood, and it's okay that we're using the hose because we don't have any exposed meat yet. We're gonna dry off the outside and the inside of our fish and bring it on over to our table. Now we're ready to start cutting. We're gonna make a nice incision right on top of the tail, just like that. Then we're going to fillet the meat off the bone from that tail section. Now that the meat is off the bone, we've exposed where the vertebrae is on the spine. Just go straight down, little tap, and you can see the gelatin. Having those hollow pockets is what makes cutting through them very easy. Now we're gonna flip it over. We wanna hit it on the exact same spot, and we're gonna fillet it off the bones on side number 2. Next, we're gonna take our scissors, and we're gonna go on both sides of this spine, giving that exposed bone so we've got a pretty shank look. Now we're gonna go up a few inches, cut straight down like that, and if you hit it on the right spot, you'll have that little pocket of gelatin right there. This fish is absolutely gorgeous. We're gonna snip this down one more, and there's our yellowtail shank. Then we have a steak cut. Go down to the bone, give it a little tap, slide down, and we're gonna do those steak cuts until we get to the ribs. So we have one more, little tap, slide down, and there's our second steak. Before we go to the rib section, we're gonna remove the head and the collars. And the kama on these yellowtail kingfish is absolutely phenomenal. When it comes to removing the head, we're gonna find a bone that's sitting on top of the collar. This bone is really easy to cut right underneath, so we didn't saw through any bone, we just cut right underneath a bone. We're gonna flip it over, cut right underneath this bone. Now that we're down to the bottom, we're gonna give it a little tap on both sides, and the head will come right off without causing any damage to the meat. If you just rip it off, you could tear some of the meat on the front of that fish, and we don't want to do that. Up next, we're gonna remove the collars, sliding our knife right underneath the collar bone, just behind where that pectoral fin was, sliding forward, just like that. Flip our knife around, and you got a beautiful collar portion off just like that. Now, what some people like to do is they like to leave some of the meat on the kama. So if you wanted to do that, we're going to go like that, twist our knife right on top of the spine, and push forward, leaving a little bit of meat on that collar portion. So that way it's a little bit of a heartier serving. Up next, we're going to remove the belly from the rib bones without filleting it. So we're going to slide down right on top of those ribs. You do not want to cut through the ribs. You want to find the ribs with your knife and then start sliding down those bones. Very gentle with your knife. You do not want to cut through those bones, because that's a part of our presentation. What a phenomenal tasting fish. All right, there's belly number 1. Now we're going to fillet this. Just rest your knife right on top of the skeleton and pull, allowing that skeleton to guide your knife. Once you get to the top of the ribs, instead of going around them, we want to keep those bones attached, so we're going to cut through, just like that. We're going to flip it over and repeat the process on the other side. Find where the bloodline is. That's where the ribs are going to go to. The ribs bones are going to connect to the pin bone line, which is going to line up with that bloodline. And you need enough space to where those bones have something to hold on to. So we're going to go just in front of that bloodline. Once you feel the bone with your knife, stop and just gently start carving on top of that bone. Pull away with the belly meat as you're sliding down. And be careful that once you go to the base of those bones, you don't keep going. Just separate it off once you get to the bottom of those bones. And there is belly number 2. Now I'm going to flip this over, get my knife right underneath the bone. If your knife feels the bone, you're not losing out on any of that meat. If your knife does not feel the bone, you are missing out on some of that absolutely phenomenal yellowtail kingfish. Once you're to the center, you want to go underneath and start cutting through those rib bones instead of going around them, because we want to leave those rib bones attached to our high loin portion. And there we go. We're going to keep that skeleton and scrape all the extra meat between the spine off.
And your kingfish heads should never go to waste.
A lot of delicious meat in those heads. Little tap, and look at all the meat behind the forehead and behind the head on these fish. Not only that, but you also have cheek meat.
Put this over coals and it's a great way to enjoy the rest of the fish.
We're gonna take our knife and slide in between each of these bones.
Now we just have to dip this exposed bone into some simmering water, and that sinew and flesh around the bone peels right off with a paper towel or a rag, making this really gorgeous exposed bone rack that we can then cut into beautiful portions. On a larger fish, I would cut this down in between each bone. But on a smaller fish like this, we're gonna do each cut in between 2 bones instead of 1. That way we have a perfect thickness for pan searing. Yellowtail kingfish is among the world's most popular fish for raw consumption. This fish is in sushi restaurants all over the world, but how we're cutting it here is to cook it, because it's also absolutely phenomenal cooked. Steaks for the grill, chops for the pan, and a shank for the oven, this fish can do everything. And if you want to experience a fish that top chefs all over the world use, the Kingfish Company sustainably raises these beautiful fish in the Netherlands. Fish can be so much more than just 2 fillets. Thanks for watching. Have a killer day.